Hello and thank you for joining us for Evolve TV, where we uncover the secrets of how aftermarket workshops can improve, optimise and systemise their businesses. I'm your host Jason O, and in this episode we're going to be talking about the strict lubricant requirements of modern vehicles as part of the leading Evolve workshop program by Mechanic.com.au. Evolve TV helps aftermarket workshops discover how to become more connected with the marketplace, their customers, their staff, as well as other leading aftermarket workshops. Learn how to leverage digital platforms and tools as well as best business practices in order to run a more efficient and innovative automotive service and repair business. This is Evolve TV. We're joined by special guest Ron Azzopardi, who is the technical manager over at Castrol Australia, and welcome to the show, Ron. Now, I'm dying to find out, tell us a little bit about yourself, but also how did you get it started in the world of oil?
Thank you. So I've been in the oil industry now for just coming up to 25 years now.
Oh, yeah.
And I started my career working in an oil laboratory, actually developing products such as engine oils, greases, transmission fluids, gear oils, even cutting fluids and fuels. Since then...
A clean environment for a dirty product almost.
Absolutely, yes.
Wow. So
yes.
white coat, the whole lot? White lab coat, glasses, the whole lot?
You got it. Yeah, absolutely. I didn't bring a picture for you, but you could actually have a look at it and have a bit of fun there. Yeah, so since then I've had various sales and technical roles that enabled me to develop not only just a broad understanding of lubricants and lubrication technology, but also to spend time with customers, understanding their needs and expectations, as well as seeing our products in real-world applications. So I've been with Castrol now for coming up to 10 years.
Wow. And
based in Melbourne. And I have an office there. However, I tend to travel quite a lot.
Yeah. So I've got to just quickly ask, obviously working with Castrol in the automotive side of things, are you a car guy?
Absolutely, I am.
Yeah.
Ever since I was a little kid.
Regale us with maybe what you may be kicking around with at the moment?
Don't actually have a pet project at the moment, but I'm always on the lookout for something special.
Correct answer. Okay, so Ron, so how important is it to ensure that you're using the right lubricants to service these modern vehicles?
Well, you can appreciate that the Australian car market is huge. It's one of the most complicated in the world, and we expect it to grow even further with the introduction of new brands and also new technologies. Currently, there are over 60 manufacturers selling vehicles here in Australia.
That's a lot of cars.
It is indeed, it is. And that poses a particular challenge to an oil company because there's very little adoption in uniform technologies. In other words, manufacturers, they like to do their own thing.
Yeah.
Okay? So they demand a lubricant that's actually designed specifically for their vehicles. You have to also remember that not too long ago, a workshop could get away with having only one or two engine oils.
Yeah.
Okay?
Different grades. Yeah.
Different grades, yeah. Those days are long gone, right? So selecting the right lubricant is really important. And it's important when you're servicing a vehicle for a number of reasons. First of all, it preserves the performance of the car as far as power is concerned, as far as fuel efficiency. Also preserves exhaust treatment systems like DPFs. Using the correct lubricant also preserves the resale value of a vehicle.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. So when it comes to sale time, a potential buyer would want to look at the service history of that car, and they would want to see that it had been serviced correctly at regular intervals using the correct lubricants. And finally, it's about maintaining the manufacturer's warranty. Okay? The advice that I give to customers, to workshops, and to workshop owners and mechanics and the like is that selecting and using the correct lubricant is probably the easiest and cheapest thing that you can do when you're maintaining a customer's vehicle. Yeah. So it makes sense to get it right.
Provides consistency. And it's interesting, you said you've been in the industry for 10 years, Ron, but if we go back, so much has happened in 10 years, just in regards to new brands, new players, new vehicles, new formats of vehicles coming to the market. You would have seen a big change just in your role in 10 years.
Absolutely we have. We've seen the introduction of a lighter viscosity engine oils. Going back 40, 50 years, the gold standard would have been a 20W40 engine oil, okay?
Yeah.
Now, as I mentioned, those days are gone. We're looking at 0W20.
Wow.
By far, the most common viscosity grade is a 5W30 that's used around the country.
Yeah.
But 0W20s and even lighter viscosity grades are going to be introduced into the market.
Let's get technical now. Talk to me about the meaning of the acronym ACEA.
Okay, so ACEA is the European Automobile Manufacturers Association. It's a bit of a mouthful.
Yeah,
okay?
You have to say it with an accent.
You do, yeah. Well, yes, you do. But what it is that it's a body that represents some of the main European manufacturers that are currently operating. Now, it was established in the early to mid-90s. And what ACEA have done is that they've created their own oil standards, which we call oil sequences. And they're broken down into three main categories, okay? You've got ACEA A and B, and these are lubricants that are designed specifically for petrol and light diesel vehicles.
Okay. Yeah.
Then we've got ACEA C, and C refers to catalyst-compatible lubricants. And an example of that would be vehicles that run DPFs and TWCs, three-way catalytic converters.
Yeah.
The final category is ACEA E, and these are lubricants that are designed primarily for heavy-duty diesel engines. We're talking about trucks, we're talking about earth-moving equipment, and we're talking about mining equipment as well.
Understanding that acronym really allows the user in a workshop to know exactly what they're grabbing and putting in, and that would obviously give you a lot of confidence offering that product.
Yes, absolutely. It's important to ensure that when you're actually selecting the lubricant, that it complies to the appropriate ACEA recommendations for the vehicle that you're actually servicing. Absolutely. I just want to also add that ACEA actually update their oil standards quite regularly.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So they do that to take into account not only changes in lubrication technology, but also engine technologies as well.
Well, just very quickly, I'll throw one quick question at you. They obviously have their sequences and so forth. Do vehicles over time move sequences?
They can indeed. And an example of that would be that a relatively new vehicle that's come onto the market may change their requirement as far as an ACEA approved product. So that will actually potentially happen, and mechanics and workshops have to be across changes in the industry.
It's good to know that that's there.
Yeah.
So Ron, a vehicle can move the ACEA sequence, but are there ACEA lubricants that are multi-grade, as we'd call it, across different sequences?
Yeah, absolutely. And an example of that is a new engine oil that we've just recently launched onto the market called Castrol Edge 0W20 C5. And this product complies with ACEA C5 and ACEA C6 performance standards. And it's also interesting to note that ACEA C6 is actually a recently introduced specification launched by ACEA.
Yeah.
Okay. So yes, having multiple ACEA performance classifications is indeed possible with a single formulation. However, that's only possible when all relevant chemical limits and physical testing parameters are actually met.
Yeah.
Okay.
You mentioned a bit earlier on about the non-standardization of the automotive industry in regards to oil, requirements. And whilst that's impossible to do because you're working with so many parties, it sounds like you're coming to some form of a manufacturing support compromise by doing this.
Yeah, absolutely. It's important for us to provide the technologies and the products that are required to keep these cars on the road and to keep them going. So we have teams of R&D chemists that are constantly working and developing these products to ensure that we're providing the very best quality lubricants.
And I mean, that helps the end user, but it also, more importantly, helps the workshops who need to have that flexibility.
Yeah, definitely. We always try and help workshops to try and rationalise and minimise the amount of grades that they have, because it's turning into a big challenge.
Like a cocktail bar.
Yeah, it is now. It is. And at times you see mechanics actually running down the street buying a 5 litre or 20 litre container.
You can't be doing that.
Exactly. Yeah, it causes waste and it's quite an expensive process. So we try and help and minimise that.
All right, so this one's a bit of a technical question, so I'm going to read it to make sure I get it 100%.
No problem.
What is the difference between OEM approved lubricants and then lubricants that meet or exceed the manufacturer's specifications?
Yeah, it's a very topical subject at the moment. And it's a question that I actually get asked quite a lot by workshops and workshop owners and mechanics alike, because I think there's a little bit of confusion in the marketplace. The bottom line is that an OEM approval is a product that has been approved by the OEM themselves for use in their vehicle.
Would that be after they've done all the testing and
Yes.
development of that vehicle under all the conditions that they've put it through?
Correct.
Right.
So we work in collaboration with them to develop an oil which is then tested for compliance against those standards. Okay. So the value of an OEM approval is that it's a written proof that the product is actually suitable for use. And it's also proof of the lubricant's quality. Okay.
Right.
Now, that only happens when an oil company works in collaboration with an OEM to develop an oil which is then tested for compliance. But you can appreciate that compliance process and that evaluation process takes considerable time.
Yeah.
And also considerable R&D funding.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
And it would also potentially be expensive because some of these products and some of these brands are global.
Yeah.
So you're testing around the world. So getting samples back from the pre-production vehicle from, Spain or Africa
Correct.
or Australia and then
Correct.
analysing it. It's a lengthy process.
It is a lengthy process and it's also a very expensive process. And we at Castrol, we pride ourselves on our R&D facilities. We have teams of experts working with OEMs around the world, constantly developing new products. So this is really the value of a product that actually has an OEM approval.
I'm getting your passion here because you were on the bench as a scientist.
Definitely.
And you would have got, samples back. So I'm feeling that coming from you, that
Correct.
there's a lot that goes into this.
It is. It's a very lengthy process.
It's not just blending a cocktail and then handing it out.
No, correct. And some people may have that perception as far as how lubricants are actually developed and formulated, but a lot of work goes into it before you actually have a finished product, well before it actually gets submitted for approval.
Well, with the OEM, getting that approval and getting that certification from them, obviously when it leaves the dealership and it goes into the big wide world, there's then what we call meet and exceed manufacturer expectations. Talk me through that side of things.
Yeah, so if you compare an OEM approved product to a product that meets or exceeds, what that really means is that the oil company represents that the lubricant will actually pass OEM specifications, but they haven't actually formally submitted a sample for evaluation and testing. So in other words, you're taking the oil company's word for it that it actually that product actually is suitable for use.
Does what it does.
Yeah, indeed.
So I'm already seeing in my mind warranty.
Correct.
Warranty. Is that really one of the main fundamental reasons? I mean, the running is obviously important, but is warranty and warranty claims?
Warranty and warranty claims is first and foremost when it comes to using the correct product and actually using a product that's actually meeting an OEM approval, okay? Many OEMs now are becoming stricter when it comes to lubricants that they actually allow to be used in their vehicles. And conversely, they're getting even more stricter when it comes to what they're not allowing to be used in their cars as well.
It's interesting, as a side comment, there's been quite a bit of conversation in the industry about fuels and synthetic fuels, and the fact that some manufacturers may look to limit warranty based on the fuel you're going to use in the future. And it sounds like this with oil as well, because you must get it right.
Absolutely, you have to get it right. The thing that I always drum into workshops and mechanics alike is that selecting the right lubricant for the right vehicle is critical. If you get that right, then you're ensuring that you've got a smooth and trouble-free servicing down the line.
And the client needs to know that you have chosen the right product.
Correct.
And you're giving them the service. That's why they're going to come back. And for a workshop, that's how someone comes back.
Absolutely.
So Ron, you mentioned that Castrol obviously work with different vehicle manufacturers. Yep. Who are some of the people that you're working with, and what does that process sort of look? I know it's a big process, but sort of succinctly tell me how that works. Do they approach you? Do you approach them?
Yeah. Well, I mean, the work that we do with manufacturers, with OEMs, really is at the foundation of so many products that we have as part of our portfolio. We spend huge amounts of money actually working with global OEMs, including the likes of Jaguar Land Rover, Volvo, and Renault.
Okay.
And if I were to call out a particular OEM that we have a long history with, it would be the Ford Motor Company.
Yeah, okay.
We have over 100 years of collaboration with them. And that's involved developing new products, new lubricants to suit their new engine and technology platforms. In addition to that, our relationships with global OEMs and the investment that we're making is a demonstration of our commitment to developing the very best lubricants for our customers' vehicles throughout the entire life cycle of that vehicle, long after the warranty period is actually expired.
Yeah.
Okay, so choosing a product that actually meets the OEM recommendations and developing these sorts of products really shows our level of commitment. If I also can actually add that 2 out of 3 EV OEMs actually use Castrol EV products.
Yeah.
And these products are used primarily for factory fuel at the moment. And we're talking about products that include EV transmission fluids, EV coolants, and even EV greases.
I'm deeply passionate about EVs. On a number of podcasts, it comes out from me.
Yep.
I love the technology of it, but with the EV being it, the ultimate incarnation of technology at the moment, I'm going to go back a little bit because you talked about different platforms and new engines and so forth.
Sure.
And with that reduction in viscosity comes engines that are what we'll call tighter.
Correct.
They are more compact. They are more efficient. In that 10 years that you've been with Castrol and you're working with these OEMs, maybe tell us about the time that a new platform came across your scope and you were like, wow, I can't wait.
I guess the one particular example was working with a particular OEM in developing lighter or less viscous
like a
products.
zero oil.
Yeah, zero oil. And it requires constant evaluation and testing to ensure that full compliance is met, because when you're evaluating a product like that, there are so many different parameters that you need to actually consider. The push for lighter viscosity lubricants primarily focuses on fuel efficiency, okay? But you also have to take into account engine protection, minimizing wear and tear, and obviously ensuring the longevity of an engine to ensure that it actually operates, and also preserving exhaust treatment systems such as DPFs and all sorts of other things as well.
Yeah, there's a lot to take on board. And I remember when I first saw the very first zero on a bottle of oil.
Correct, yeah, okay.
Zero W, and I remember looking at it going, oh no, that's a misprint.
Yeah.
And I moved the bottle aside, they're making a zero oil.
Yeah.
And I remember talking to people in the industry. It was quite revolutionary when the first ones came out, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. It's interesting when you go back to those particular times, because zero oils now are very common. Okay.
Yeah.
In the past, they were specifically required for alpine applications. Obviously, for very cold startup applications, you need that very low viscosity for pumpability when your engine's cold at startup. However, now they're becoming more and more common. More OEMs are actually introducing zero W products. And as I mentioned, this is primarily for fuel economy benefits.
We touched briefly on EVs.
Yeah.
And if we just focus on those at the moment, the technology's been around for a while now in different forms. And we're really starting to get pointy end with applying modern technology, battery systems and so forth. The lubrication requirements, obviously, of electric motors is nowhere near what it's like with a combustion motor. Where do you potentially see some expansion with EVs? Cooling, things like that?
Yeah, I think the main growth area is obviously with cooling, with thermal fluids that are actually available
That's
at the moment.
Term, yeah.
And transmission fluids and obviously EV greases are really important, because these minimize the amount of a drag that the EV will actually undergo during just its normal operation.
And when you take into consideration the combustion motor has that performance, reliability, economy sort of paradigm that you can run through.
Correct.
EVs are very focused on efficiency.
Yes.
Aren't they?
Yes.
Yeah, the reliability and the performance is almost boxes are ticked. It's the efficiency of the wheel bearings, the grease, the oils in the transmission that are almost like that new frontier.
Yeah.
That a guy like you would be sort of sitting there salivating going, I want to go back to the science lab, you know?
Yeah, correct. I mean, that really is at the forefront of the thinking behind the development of these products. Efficiency, the reduction in drag, the ability to make lubricants not only perform this way, but also to last for the entire lifespan of the vehicle itself. filled for life is something that you see quite common now with a lot of these EVs. So it's something that keeps us busy.
And I'm thinking about the serviceability of EVs. And I know there's a lot of workshop owners that are sort of kind of going,
Yeah.
But then that opens up the question, are some of these OEM manufacturers saying, well, actually, your bearings need to be almost serviced like an oil change.
Yeah.
Your transmission needs to be serviced like an oil change to maintain that efficiency at such a high level to get the benefit from the vehicle so we can warranty it and make that claim.
Yeah, and it comes down to training, and it comes down to being across the very latest technologies that are actually out there. So it's up to mechanics and workshops to make sure that they're up to speed with changes in that technology and changes with the lubricants that are required.
So when it comes to new car warranty and servicing, what are some of the things that mechanics need to be aware of when they're doing that work?
Yeah, first and foremost, they need to ensure that they're selecting the right lubricant for the car that they're servicing, okay? OEMs now are becoming more and more stricter in terms of the lubricants that they're allowing to be used in their vehicles, as I mentioned before. So failure to use the correct product could lead to a failure and could leave you as a workshop exposed, okay? If a failure were to occur, the focus will immediately be on the service history of that vehicle. So it's important to get it right. At Castrol, we have a number of different tools that workshops can actually use in order to make the right lubricant selection.
That's a fantastic way to look at that issue that is being driven further upstream to the workshop owners. I guess that also underpins the opportunity for Castrol to have strategic relationships with workshops to fulfill those obligations.
Yeah, absolutely. And we work very closely with them to make sure that they have the requirements and they have the products that they need to actually get the job done.
One of the big things for me is when I see the price of new vehicles and what people are paying for these vehicles, the technology associated. You want to make sure you mitigate that risk by doing the right job.
Yeah, as I mentioned, selecting the right lubricant is absolutely essential in order to ensure trouble-free motoring. What's also important to consider is that with the price of new vehicles going up, the associated risk has increased significantly when things go wrong. So it's important to get it right.
And I think to myself, $150,000 car, and you get the viscosity wrong in the oil, that can be sitting on the side of the road.
Absolutely, and it'll be your fault.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're talking about thousands of dollars of repair costs.
And the workshops that are making those decisions, I think they are starting to become aware that we're not dealing with a $20,000 car that's brand new anymore. We're dealing with a car that's $120,000, and it's more and more common to make sure, have we got the right oil? Right. Just double check it.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other thing to consider is not only the cost to actually repair it, but the time that it'll take to actually get the parts. As we know, with some of these really expensive European vehicles,
the knock-on effect is huge.
Absolutely. You could be waiting weeks, if not months, for parts to actually come in. So once again, there's a huge risk there if you get things wrong. So it pays to actually spend some time selecting the right oil.
All right, so Ron, this is a big one for me. Let's talk about lubrication selection and the importance of it with the preservation of the diesel particulate filters. Big topic.
Right, yeah, absolutely. The DPF will work as it's meant to when you're actually selecting the right oil, okay? So oil selection is absolutely critical. And the reason for that is because the DPF is actually designed to capture exhaust emissions in the form of ash. And what is interesting about that is that the majority of that ash actually originates from your engine oil during the combustion process, okay? That ash is made up of metallic compounds called saps. Now, saps is a term that you'll hear quite a lot when people talk about engine oil technology. And engine oils generally fall into either being low, mid, or high saps, okay? Now, saps itself is actually an acronym that means sulfated ash, phosphorus, and sulfur. Now, different OEMs require different sap levels for their particular engines.
Right.
Okay. Now, when things go wrong and you've chosen the wrong lubricant for a vehicle that actually has a DPF, it can actually cause a blockage. If your DPF is blocked, you're going to get an increase in pressure, and the driver will actually notice a drop in performance. If that were to continue, the DPF and the car itself might actually stop altogether. It could end up with thousands of dollars in repair bills. Okay, so once again, strict adherence to your lubricant selection according to OEM specifications is critical to ensure the preservation and the longevity of your DPF system.
Can you give us some examples, Ron, of some of the vehicles that the mechanics are running into problems when it comes time to choosing lubricants now?
If I were to point to petrol engines in particular, over the last few decades, there's been a big emphasis on making them smaller, making them lighter, making them more fuel efficient, while also reducing exhaust emissions and increasing power and torque. Okay,
The Holy Grail.
It is the Holy Grail, absolutely. But when you can combine a configuration like that with turbocharging and direct injection systems, it's enabled manufacturers to create incredibly small yet really powerful engines. Okay. However, this has led to a rise in a situation called LSPI. And as the name suggests, LSPI is actually low speed pre-ignition.
Right.
Okay.
Yes.
So,
because I got the pre-ignition from the old school days of it pinging its head off.
correct. Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
Low speed.
Yep. So as the name suggests, it's pre-ignition or an uncontrolled combustion
Right.
at low speeds, but high load applications.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm following that.
So the driver will, when this occurs, the driver will actually notice a knocking noise coming from the engine. Okay. Now, LSPI can cause severe damage to an engine. Okay. This includes damaged spark plugs and cracked pistons.
Is that because the motor's not working in what we call the sweet spot it's supposed to be in?
Yeah. That is a contributing factor. As I mentioned, engine design is one of the main factors for LSPI. However, some other contributing factors include fuel quality.
Oh, okay. Yes.
As well as the lubricant selection as well.
Right.
Lubricant is actually critical. So when the lubricant enters the combustion chamber, it mixes with the fuel.
Yep.
And actually can promote.
Make it worse.
Spontaneous
If you
combustion.
get it wrong.
Yeah. So the wrong lubricant will only make it worse. Absolutely. So it's very important, once again, that when you're actually selecting a lubricant, that you're adhering to OEM specifications, especially when that vehicle is prone to LSPI.
The vehicles, without wanting to cast too many stones, what are some of the vehicles that this is known to occur with?
Yeah, we're generally talking about downsized petrol turbocharged engines with direct injection systems.
Right, okay. Yep.
And we're talking about an engine capacity upwards of about 1400 cc.
So what I'm trying to put together is those vehicles that you're describing have probably been brought to the market to compete with small diesel vehicles in regards to performance economy, and they're stringing these motors out to a certain RPM, but they're not really seeing that they're living down at a lower RPM with heavy load.
Yeah, that's correct. And that's the challenge.
That's a hell of a challenge.
That's the challenge, okay? And there is a certain, as I mentioned, the lubricant does play a part in it, and we have been working very closely with the OEMs to try and actually find solutions to that problem.
Well, it's certainly an engineering challenge, and it sounds like you guys have got a handle on it, and it sounds like it's a bit of an old school pre-ignition problem reinvented for the new age.
Yeah.
But by using the lubricants, obviously you'll be able to overcome it. I mean, it's going to happen in time. You'll find a solution to it.
Yeah.
Do you see that type of motor continuing in the future, or do you think that will probably be phased out because it's too problematic?
I think that it'll eventually go through an evolutionary phase.
Okay.
Where it'll be engineered out of the motor itself. The configuration, the design of the motor is by far the biggest contributor to LSPI. So I would suspect that with advancements in engine technology, that we should eventually see the end of it.
Well, I'm going to take you in an old school question direction now.
Okay.
Because everybody knows that I like my old muscle cars and old cars, so I'm going to throw it into you now.
Yeah.
So we're talking about the cutting edge technology where mechanics are having a hard time choosing lubricants. Let's go back to the other end of the spectrum. The vehicles that are the classic, the historic, the collectibles. Are you finding that there's any issues providing mechanics and workshops with oils to service say the pre-50 cars?
That's an interesting question because pre-50 cars, by their very nature, require quite basic lubricants. And they're actually harder and harder to find off the shelf because the vast majority of lubricants that are actually available are highly formulated, highly advanced products. Pre-50 cars really only require a monograde 30 or monograde 50 viscosity lubricant. So it is a challenge. However, having said that, there are lubricants that are available today that can actually suit the requirements of those older vehicles.
Perfect. We've got to keep them on the road.
Oh yes, absolutely.
We've got to know where we're going as long as we know where we've come from.
That's right, and we love them. I love my old cars. So yeah.
We touched briefly on EVs. I love technology. I love moving forward. What do you think are some of the innovations we're going to see in lubricants coming forward?
Yeah. Well, as I mentioned before, we're expecting the Australian market to grow even further with the introduction of new technologies. And also, in addition to that, in recent years, we've seen a huge growth in the introduction of hybrid vehicles.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, I have one myself.
Yeah.
It's fantastic. It's really reliable and it's just so economical. Just about every OEM now has a hybrid in their range.
And they're being mandated by some countries.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's right. And if they don't have one, they'll be launching one in the near future. You always see a news article about another manufacturer launching a hybrid.
They buy each other's products, don't they? They run over them, probably do it with oil, but they do it with cars, don't they?
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, that's right. Hybrid vehicles actually, they create their own challenge as far as an engine oil is concerned.
Yeah.
And it does it in a number of different areas, okay? Some of the areas are, they actually are exposed to 10 times more stop-starts than a conventional car. They're exposed to rapid acceleration at a moment's notice. The operating temperature is slightly lower, which can affect the longevity of an engine oil.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, that's right. The reason for that is because engine oils need to operate at a certain temperature to burn off unburnt fuel, for example.
Yeah.
Okay? If they don't have an opportunity to do that, then that could actually accelerate certain reactions in the oil, which reduces its life.
Yeah, that's interesting to think that a hybrid vehicle doesn't get up to that operating temperature and stay there. If you've got a long drive and you're in the electrical aspect of the car, the petrol aspect drops.
That's right.
The temperature drops.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And that probably further plays to that question in regards to Australia as a big country. We drive much further distances than anybody else around the world.
Yeah.
And so is it fair to say that our oil lubricants in the future may become bespoke?
Absolutely. I think it will actually become bespoke at some stage. But already we're seeing certain lubricants being manufactured according to what OEMs are actually mandating. And that will also, I think, at some stage, be specific to particular regions.
So we're traveling a bit of a path here and we're going to get to the workshops because obviously these guys are listening. Where are they going to go to choose the right lubricants? What's the best way for them to adopt these things and move forward?
Yeah, well, when choosing a lubricant, first and foremost, you need to choose obviously the correct lubricant for the correct vehicle, okay? And at Castrol, we have a number of tools that workshops and mechanics can use. If you go to www.castrol.com.au.
Nice, easy one.
It is. You can then navigate directly to our Trade Lube Selector Guide, and you can actually take that and save it as an icon on your desktop.
You can drag it on a desktop.
Yeah, and you can have that there for future reference. Once you double click that, it'll take you to a menu. All you need to do then is just type in the vehicle that you're working on, for example, a 2017 Holden Commodore, and it'll give you the breakdown of all the lubricants that you need from the engine, transmission fluid, final drive, even the fluids that you need for your brakes and your cooling system.
That's fantastic.
In addition to that, it'll also give you the volumes that you need to ensure that you've actually got the correct amounts for that service.
Well, just on that, in regards to the volumes, I have seen some problems with volumes in the past. Yeah. Do you see a big change in volumes going up or down?
I would expect that for conventional vehicles, especially diesels, that are extending their drain intervals, that some volumes are increasing, and we've seen that already. Okay. Traditionally, for older vehicles, some volume was always around 6 or 7 litres. Now we're looking at 12 or 13 litre sumps. Okay, so volumes have increased.
It's extremely important for these workshops to have a reference guide rather than just guesstimate and a couple of clicks and they know exactly what they're getting.
And that's what we can provide. Our Loop Selector Guide, our Trades Loop Selector Guide will actually provide all the volumes that you need to get the job done right.
So when you're selecting the right oils and you're going through Castrol, if you ever get to a point where you are confused from a workshop point or you're just not sure, can they reach out?
Absolutely, they can. We have a huge technical team spread right across the country with over 100 years of combined experience, okay? And we can arrange for a representative to come and visit should you actually need any specific advice as far as...
That was going to be my next question, on site.
Your lubrication requirements. In addition to that, you could ring our technical helpline number, which is actually based right here in Australia, and that's on 1300 557 998, and they're there ready to take your phone call. So
between the Castrol site and the hotline number, you really have got that beyond obviously checking the guide, that if you are confused, a quick call, a quick message, and you're in business.
Yeah, and as I mentioned before, it takes the guesswork out of your lubricant selection, which is really important. The other thing that I want to mention is that if you prefer to send an email, you can email us on Castrol Technical Inquiries, which is all one word, at castrol.com.au. I'm
thinking about the hourly rate of a mechanic to do an email to you on that address. I'm also thinking about the $150,000 car on the side of the road with the wrong viscosity.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to work out and thinking to myself, it's more effective to send an email instead of sending the car out. Ask for help.
Yeah. Ask for help. And we can help. Our assistants can go well beyond that. We can come in and we can look at all your lubrication requirements. We can rationalize products where applicable, and we can definitely assist in streamlining your business. All these tools are available just to give peace of mind to our customers that when they're actually using Castrol, we're going to be with them every step of the way.
You're a technical guy, you work in the lab, you see oils. Tell me one of those examples where something came in that was a catastrophic failure purely because the wrong oil was chosen. Can you remember something? A real catastrophic failure.
A real catastrophic failure.
I'm talking about someone putting cooking oil in a motor or something like that, and you got the specimen and you're like, are you joking me?
Yeah, well, we've had situations where people have actually used cutting fluids, accidentally put in a cutting fluid into their vehicle.
Cutting fluid?
Cutting fluid, yeah. These are soluble cutting fluids.
Right.
That's actually gone in and has completely made a meal of the engine in a very short period of time. Eaten the bearings, completely destroyed the entire vehicle. So it eventually turned into a complete engine change. Yeah.
Far, that's amazing.
Yeah.
And engines take a fair bit of abuse, but oil is blood.
It is blood, and you have to ensure that you're selecting the right lubricant, as I've mentioned. And it's easy to select the right oil. It's just a matter of using the tools that we have available.
I could just imagine you at the bench freaking out when you look at some of this stuff going, what were you thinking?
Yeah. Well, when a sample like that is presented to you and you do all of the chemical analysis and you compare that with QC, and then you realise that the product that they've used is nothing like the product that they're meant to be using, some questions get asked as to how we ended up here.
Well, you got to finish it off somewhere, don't you?
Absolutely, yes.
Beautiful. Well, Ron, it's been fantastic having you on the show. I've learned a hell of a lot about oils, and I know everybody has it as well at home.
Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure.